Welcome back to The Cut on the Diamond, a show where two athletes get together and tell stories of their careers and answer the big question, how did we get here? I'm your host, 10-season Major League veteran and third place all-time on the saves list for guys with my same name, Trevor May. Today, I am joined by a guy that needs no introduction, but I'm going to give you one anyways. Born on November 22nd, 1985 in Manhattan, this guy was first drafted in 2003 by the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. Yes, they were called the Devil Rays back then in the 30th round, but chose to attend Northeastern University instead. That decision ended up paying off big time when in the 2006 draft, he was taken 30th overall by the St. Louis Cardinals. In his 14-year Major League career so far, this man has compiled 743 innings over 724 games, including 859 Ks and a 3.49 ERA career mark. In 2019, he was also the first pitcher wearing the number 0 to ever face a batter wearing the same number when he matched up with notorious World Series ring collector Terrence Gore. Ladies and gents, let me introduce you to my former teammate and friend, Adam Ottavino. Otto, thanks for coming on the show, man.
That was great, Team A. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
I mean, I've been practicing. I've had a whole year. This is what I do now. I mean, I'm sure you were really surprised when I just appeared on everyone's TikTok feed immediately after I retired. Well, yeah, how you doing, man? How's the off season so far? We're recording here in January, and I know it's cold up there in the city. How you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, it is cold. It was like 12 degrees today for most of the day. So
Jesus Christ.
I don't know. It felt really cold today, but it's all good. Got the kids to school on time, picked them up on time.
W.
Today I did not have to work out, so we're good.
Didn't have to work out, or was just day off?
Well, I worked out hard 2 days in a row, and I'm 39, so I needed today.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 35, and I know what you mean. Yeah. So, how old are your kids again? Remind me.
9, 6, and I have a 1.5-year-old too. So
1.5-year-old.
Got a lot going on.
Congratulations. I got my 3.5-year-old, just month old, just being massive. It's crazy, man. I don't know how you did this while you're playing. I don't know how anyone does this while playing. This is crazy. There's no way I could have done it.
0 to 1 is the biggest jump, though.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah, 0 to 1 is the biggest jump, like AA to AAA or high A to AA.
Yeah.
Cool. So I just mentioned, you're in the city. You are from born and raised in Brooklyn. Well, born in Manhattan, raised in Brooklyn, and you currently still live. Do you live pretty close to where you grew up?
It's close mileage wise, but it takes a while to get there. Brooklyn's on the other side of Manhattan from where I'm at, so I have to go to the Bronx all the way through Manhattan to get to where I was at in Brooklyn. So when my parents come, like if it's a weekend, you can do it in under an hour, but if it's normal times, it's going to be like hour and 45 minutes. So.
Like it's almost faster to drive to Philly.
Like in a way, yeah, because I can just get to New Jersey and
go down.
South, avoid all the city stuff. But they just started congestion pricing over here, so that's actually sort of seems to be working. Like in lower Manhattan, there's a lot less vehicles at the moment. Nobody wants to pay $9 just to drive there anymore. So I don't know. It's getting interesting. Yeah.
That sounds like a mission accomplished to me. Like that. I mean, that's the point, guys. Exactly. You complaining and not driving. Exactly. That's exactly what we wanted. So you grew up in New York City and you play professional baseball. And I come from Washington, not known as a baseball hotbed. Our weather sucks, and there's not a lot of people here. But New York City probably has its own things going on with when you're a kid trying to play baseball, with facilities and having enough fields, and there being so many kids and only so many places to play. So tell me a little bit about like what it was like growing up playing baseball, in that with that many people in that small of a space.
Yeah, sure. It's super interesting because like in Manhattan, which is like what most people think of as New York City, like there's just not a lot of baseball going on there. There's no fields. There's some fields in Central Park, but they're public fields. There's really not a lot of fields in Manhattan, so all the baseball's played in the outer boroughs. So it's like Brooklyn is big because we have a lot of space. Bronx as well, Queens as well. Um, and so you have people coming from all over the city to play in like the best travel leagues, travel
Wow.
teams, basically. Um, so really, all the best talent does get consolidated down into like 3 or 4 teams, but it's not like that when you play like the school leagues. Like when you're in
Mm,
school, like high school, you're playing like that talent is completely scattered because there's a million schools.
yeah.
And so like when I played in school league, it was very much a lower level than when I played like in travel leagues.
Okay.
The cool part about New York scene is you have a lot of Dominican influence.
Oh yeah.
So, like, there's a whole contingent of kids that I grew up playing with that are from like Washington Heights or even from near where I was from in Brooklyn. That the team had a very Latino flavor from day one. So I think that's what kind of separates it from a lot of other places is we just have a, a huge amount of people to kind of fall in love with baseball. Like it could be because there's so many people here in general. It's just a numbers game. There's going to be enough people that play baseball,
Right.
but it all takes place, yeah, like in the outer boroughs, and it is weird because it's cold, obviously, just like it is in Washington, like part of the year, and you would think that maybe basketball used to be known as like the New York City sport, but I think baseball's had a pretty good run. And then you throw in the fact that when I was a kid, the Yankees were like the dynasty Yankees. So there was a lot of love for the sport itself throughout the city.
Mm.
And I feel like it was a really good environment to grow up and play. My dad still umpires
Oh
in
wow.
the local area and stuff like quite a bit. And he says that the scene's changed a lot. But when I was growing up, at least, there was a lot of really good competition, and the process of like trying to get on one of the cool, like the good teams and stuff was like really thrilling and like difficult.
Yeah, that's a great segue, actually. But before I get into the next question, that Dylan Betances grew up in the city too, didn't he?
Hell
He's
yeah,
one of those kids. And it's super interesting because now that I'm thinking about it, there are a lot of guys who grew up in or really close to the city that are in or have been or have played against or with. What I'm at, and basketball is also known. We're also known for basketball too. We have way like Seattle's got great basketball teams,
killer.
but no pro team, of course. But a lot of good players come from here. But what about football? Like just a little sidebar: is
Yeah,
anyone from the city like is football a thing at all?
very very minimal football. The football takes place in Long Island or New Jersey. Like those surrounding areas are big for football, but the city itself, very little football. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
there's like
can't think of hardly any NFL players that are notable that I knew of growing up that played in the city.
yeah, I just don't know how so you just need too much space. There's just no way. Not only that, you can't even get anyone in to watch it if you did, right?
Well, yeah,
Um,
my high school didn't even have a football team. I mean, we
yeah, there's
just
probably a lot of high schools like that.
yeah, nowhere to play it.
Well, you mentioned the competition and like all the talent and things. Like I grew up, so when I grew up, I had to my all my good players I played against were actually basketball players. So like when I was 12, I had to run around and chase Clay Thompson down and have him score 50 on me. And when I was 15, I was getting just dominated by Kevin Love, who was 17. Uh, growing up in baseball or even other sports, like who were are there any notable names that you had to play against? Where like this guy is legitimate. Like I'm looking for a Tommy Hunter type story here because that guy played with everyone evidently.
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot of great players that that you grow up you play with. They didn't necessarily become major leaguers, but they were like
Mhm.
really
They were
amazing at the
studs
time.
then. Yeah,
Like there's a high school in Brooklyn called Zavarian, a Catholic school that had 5 kids drafted in one year, the year before me, which is like pretty
crazy.
crazy if you think about it from
That's
anywhere.
nuts. Yeah,
And they had like a third round lefty pitcher, this kid Danny Christensen. He was like there was like a bunch of kids like that I used to look up to that were like really good on the older teams. But the ones that did make it to the big leagues, like Pedro Alvarez, is probably the biggest one that stands out right away. Like I remember he played. He's from Washington Heights, but he played for a team like up in the Bronx, and I remember playing against them, and like he hit a home run off me, and we were like probably like 13, and he was just like a chubby infielder, but like nobody ever hit a home run off me. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like so I took note of it, and then like I ended up playing as like a ringer on like a couple other travel teams, like to get more, to play more. Like the
I
next
did
year,
that too.
and one of the teams was his team, and I'll never forget. Like we were in a tournament in Connecticut, and he hit like 3 home runs in a game, and the fourth at bat. they didn't want to pitch to him, but he kind of like influenced the pitcher to throw him another one and hit a fourth home run. So sometimes there's some major league stuff that pops up. So he was one. Dylan Betances, this kid Pedro Beato is another one that I grew up playing with. And then like those Palacios brothers that are in the league now
Oh yeah.
are from my area. It's like it's all kind of the same deal, like just like mostly Dominican, but grew up in New York, and like he became in love with baseball. Yeah,
Damn, dude. I knew about Alvarez growing up. Like he was like the guy, the national. I mean, this is like early. I don't even know if Perfect Game was really even
well, he went to
kicking yet.
Vanderbilt and like
Yeah,
killed
he
it at
went to Vandy. Yeah,
yeah,
killed it again. But I remember he was a huge deal when he went to Vanderbilt because my dad was super like we would he was like printed we had subscribed. I don't know if you ever did this. You might have. This is something you would do, but like Tom House did like a blog before everybody else. He had like a website in 2000 or something, or like 1999. And my dad like paid the whatever the price was to get access to it, and then just printed everything out and put it in a binder. So we were like really in on the how to get seen in
yeah.
Washington because it
You were
was impossible.
researching it. Yeah,
Yeah,
you were
we were
researching.
researching.
I mean, I was
It,
heavy like Baseball America.
yeah,
Um, that like who's the long toss guy? Jaeger.
Jaeger. Yeah,
Like he was writing blog posts. Like I was just surfing for anything, any
yeah,
information growing up.
anything. Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what's funny is there was also basketball players Sebastian Telfair. You remember that
Oh, I
name?
know Sebastian Telfair is. Yeah,
Yeah,
my
he was like,
brother loved him. Was obsessed with him.
and there's this guy Joakim Noah, and there was a
Yeah.
guy Chris Taft who ended up being the second overall pick. He went to Pitt.
Mhm.
So like basketball, though, I learned pretty quickly I didn't belong out there with those guys. But yeah, basketball is the other sport that I definitely knew people and saw people
Okay.
that became really good. Like the current head coach at Villanova, this guy Kyle Neptune, he actually played on my travel baseball team for a
Oh,
while,
damn.
and I was the head coach at Villanova for basketball. It's crazy.
That is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Yeah, dude. Sebastian Telfair. I didn't think I was going to hear that today, but well, because he was like he was the few years after LeBron, and so we had the Kwame Brown, Sebastian Telfair. Who's the next LeBron? Like, so
Yeah.
like these guys got hyped like crazy at 18.
And
Uh,
he's related to Stephon Marbury, so like it was like a
yeah, it was
he
like
was
a
also from Brooklyn,
legacy
so
thing.
it was like a whole thing. The
Yeah,
narrative was
cool
there,
thing.
sure.
Yeah, basketball over here. Like I had like uh um
Robinson,
Nate Robinson,
Jamal
who was
Crawford.
just crazy, dude. These guys were insane in high school. It was crazy. I'm like, how does anyone beat these? What is this? Like, this guy's 5'8" and he's windmilling over people at 17.
Yeah, but
This
that's
is
what they were saying
nuts.
about you. That's what they were saying about your fastball too, though, when they faced you.
Yeah,
Like, they were
I
like,
did have that.
"Who's this guy?"
They're like, yeah, they would be like, we cranked the machine up to 90, but he threw us harder than that because no one had a machine that could throw harder than 90 in high school. And throwing 90 in Washington was like,
Oh
oh
yeah,
God.
yeah, yes.
But my guy was and he's still in. Congratulations. He actually just signed a nice little 1 year, I think 15 mil to was it Kittredge? Kittredge signed a 110.
Okay, 110, yeah, 10, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and he was our number one and I was number two in our rankings forever. But he went to we were gonna go to Washington together. He went and I went in the draft. Uh
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Dellen's the one big one I knew about from your place. And so okay, so playing pro ball or not pro ball, playing travel ball,
Yeah,
trying to get on these teams. So like what oh, by the way, and the whole like being kind of a gun for hire,
yeah, yeah,
like going I would you like go like pitch against a team and then the next tournament they're like, hey, you want to come play with us? Because that happened to me about 3 times.
yeah. Just like there was another kid, this kid Rob Yotis I grew up playing with too, and me and him both were kind of like ringers sometimes for these other teams. Like they would play in a few tournaments, and we would just go, and I'd be like the extra pitcher or whatever. I wouldn't mess up what they had going, but
Yeah.
if they needed a guy in a tournament, like I go pitch the game or whatever, and he was a catcher. So it was just interesting. We would do that occasionally.
It was always fun for me. I would never show up during like they would go play in Arizona like a 5 day tournament, and like I wouldn't be there for the week because I had school or whatever.
Yeah.
Because our school went way later than everybody else in June, and then I'd show up just for the championship round. Me and like they had another kid, a lefty kid from Arizona, who ended up going to Arizona State and was like ended up being really good. And we would pitch every game after that. Like we just trade off, and then we won the tournament. Like they go for five, and then we go win every game because they had us to be in the. They had no pitching, but we were both like D1 guys, and we just show up on Saturday and was like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah, 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 yeah. They don't like
Which
that.
is the
No.
best part. It was awesome. All right, so baseball. You mentioned basketball, but you realize it's something pretty early that wasn't probably the way. Same as me. I was like, I'm a power forward. I'm 6'5". That's not tall enough. I gotta have be a point guard, if
Mhm.
anything, and I cannot move fast enough. So when did you know baseball? Like you were legit. Like when were you like, oh, like this could be? I could go to college. I could move past playing in the city.
Yeah, I was just talking about this the other day. Like, it's interesting because I was always obsessed with baseball more than the other sports, like from the beginning. Like, I went to a game when I was like 4 or 5, and I just like knew I had to be out there, like somehow. Like, I was like, I have to get out there somehow. And I was a really good player, like when I like 11 and 12. But then I didn't hit puberty like as fast as some of the other kids. So like 13, 14, when the field got bigger, that was like a big problem for me for a little while. I had skill, but I had no power at that point. And then I hit a growth spurt when I was 15. So that was like going into my the summer between sophomore and junior year of high school. And that junior year, now all of a sudden I like I was telling the story the other day. Like we used to go to Florida to open our season a little bit, and I went down there, and the first game I pitched, I think I hit 87, and that was like people were like
Yeah,
fired up about that. Like people were like in the van on the way back to the hotel, like, dude, 87, like that's like a number we saw on the TV before. So it was like,
yeah,
okay. And at that point, like I knew I was good. My results had always been good, but it was just like, you know, it was always a struggle to get noticed at that point. But like that was the beginning of seeing it. Like, oh, like I'm only 3 miles an hour away from 90, and if I'm throwing 90, they have to take me seriously, you know?
yeah.
So, and I
And
was still
90's only two away from 92. Like,
right,
yeah,
like, I was still skinny, like a skinny little bitch too, so it wasn't really like, I didn't know that I could put on the weight yet, but I felt like, "Oh, I'm onto something here,"
yeah.
at that point, yeah, so probably that year, junior year.
Like going into junior year, I same thing. I was like 5'8" going into my 5'8" or 5'9" when I ended my freshman year, or sorry, ended my sophomore year. Then I walked into junior year like 6'3". Everyone's like, "You
Yeah.
just grew 6 inches in 4 months." I'm like, "Yeah, everything hurts, guys. Everything
Yeah,
hurts a lot." But yeah, the velo just pumped up. Yeah,
yeah, and, like, I practiced so much baseball growing up, I don't know about you, but, like, I mean, I was an only child, so, like, my dad would just practice so much, like, the whole 10,000 hours thing's definitely true, like, I just practiced, and so I built up all this skill, and I wasn't, you don't know what size you're going to end up or
yeah,
whatever. And both times in my career, my life, I guess, where I took a jump, where there was that jump, or then I had another one where I really put on the weight and the muscle, and it was when I was in college. And those two things happening, it just takes you to another level because like baseball is a skill sport, but your ceiling is set by your physical ability. It's
yeah,
in some way, and so it's just like both times that happened, the growth, like the all of a sudden the results, it was just exponential, like really fast.
yeah.
So it's interesting how that works.
Yeah, like you do the work, and it's crazy because we know people that like did the work along with us, and then they just never got that additional growth, or did like they just kind of topped out, and that's good that they're going to be. And once you realize that, it's hard to stay really motivated to keep getting better, right?
Yes,
Um,
yeah, no doubt.
yeah. Same, and it sounds like we were a little bit on the same. Like I was the young guy when so like when I was 11, 12, I threw hard, but I was just wild and had emotional problems, and like no one wanted me on the team. But when I was dialed in, no one could touch me. And even that way when I wasn't the biggest, I just tried to throw. I watched Nolan Ryan. Like no, I'm like, I want to be like him. Just throw as hard as I can. But
Yeah.
I was very similar to you, and like my dad was a big basketball guy. He's like the fifth leading all time scorer at my high school, and like he went and played in college for 4 years. And he was always our basketball coach, and he took us all the best tournaments. That's how I got lined up with Clay Thompson stuff in Portland, and so he knew what he was doing. But like, so it'd be basketball season, be like, "What's your favorite sport?" I'd be like, "Basketball." Maybe baseball season, be like, "What's your favorite sport?" I'd be like, "Baseball." And we get to football, and he'd be like, "What's your favorite sport?" I'd be like, "Basketball or baseball." So and that's why we quit that shit really quick. And it did that for a while until I hit kind of that same time. Like everyone's like, "Dude, I went to Washington baseball camp. I threw 88 as a sophomore, like that summer." And I was like, "Damn, I'd grown a lot." And other guys threw 88, but they were all older than me. I was a year younger. And I got recruited like literally immediately, and then that coach got fired, and it was a whole thing. That's why I went pro. But it's just kind of crazy how it happens. Like you have no idea how it works until you're doing it. That makes sense. I'm sorry, kids listening, but
Yeah.
there's gonna be a little bit of that. Like you're just not gonna know until one day you feel real good, and you're like, "Oh, I had that in me," and then that kind of becomes the new norm. So okay, so then you get drafted out of high school 30th round, which doesn't exist anymore. Which is
Mhm.
honestly for high school pitchers, a lot of times they're just like, "You want to come?" Like, "We're probably not going to come, but maybe." And then most are like, "Nah." All right, okay, cool. And that's how they kind of use those picks.
Yeah.
But then you went to Northeastern. So talk a little bit about that decision. Did you really think about going pro, or were you just like, I'm gonna see what college is like?
I was really young. I mean, I was 17 when I got drafted. I think if I had one more year, I might have not made it to college. But I mean, I wanted to sign in a weird way just because I was just so enamored with MLB and everything. Like even just seeing my name next to a Tampa Bay Devil Rays logo like felt so good to me. But my dad wasn't having it, and really, they really didn't weren't trying to sign me. These were in the draft and
Yeah.
follow days,
Oh
so
yeah,
they
yeah.
watched me pitch. I remember they watched me pitch in a tournament in down in Georgia, and I pitched. Actually, it's crazy because the other starting pitcher was Wade LeBlanc, and so I pitched against him. And I remember I threw a good game, and I talked to the Devil Rays like it wasn't even a cross checker; it was just like another area scout afterwards, and he's like, I don't know, like I don't know what they want to do. Like, I'd like to have you in the organization right now, but blah, blah, blah. And they really never came out with much of any offer. So it was pretty much a foregone conclusion at that point that I was going to go to school. Um, and yeah, that's just the route that it ended up going. Ended up being good for me. But yeah, in the moment, there was a little bit of a little bit of a desire to sign for sure.
So baseball was all like going and being a big leaguer was always the dream. Like just that was like I was kind of like that too. I feel like I had a good like I knew that was probably the best chance. Like I knew early that basketball wasn't gonna happen in any like high level. I
Yeah.
just wanted to be as good as I could. But like I think baseball took over too. And it's funny you mentioned like 90, like that could be on TV. I was fortunate that I believed really early because we had Jamie Moyer and he was throwing 79, 80. And I was
Mhm.
13, and my dad's like, "You throw harder than him right now." And I was like,
Yeah.
"You're right, I could be in the big leagues," even though I have no grasp on how Jamie Moyer gets anyone out and didn't really put together that he is such an outlier that he throws the softest league by like 6 miles an hour. But like, if he can do it, I can do it. And then I fortunately got to be in the same organization of him for a couple years,
I
like 10
played
years
with him.
later.
I played
That's
with him. He
crazy.
was
He
on the Rockies with me. It's crazy.
you said you're 39, he was 49
He was
when he
49.
retired.
Yeah,
That
49.
is that would,
Yeah.
first of all, not play now. They would have not he would have not given the opportunity. That guy's
Yeah.
he's our favorite. He's my family's favorite. My mom loves him. Just
No,
so
he
what
was
a
great.
guy.
He was
What
awesome.
a
We
guy.
had a quick tangent with him. It's funny because he was only there for I saw his like last 4 career starts or whatever.
Hmm.
They didn't go well, but he had one. He had a meeting in Miami where he basically we were playing terrible. I had just got there, but the staff had like an 8 ERA at the time.
Mhm.
It was still April, but it was bad. Like it was bad. And he basically like motherfucked the whole all the guys in the best way. And he was just like, "You guys are a bunch of bitches, and you're not throwing inside, and you're just letting them be comfortable and all this stuff." And it was kind of gangster. And he was 49 throwing 78 or whatever. So it was like it was just so cool. Like I was like, "This is the big leagues." Like this
Like true
guy's
vet
20.
shit.
He has to be. It's crazy.
He's
Yeah.
like, "Look at me. Guys, if I can get anyone out, you all should be much better than you are." Like that is was very much his like, if I can do this, why the
Yeah.
fuck am I doing better than you? Like there's no way in no world.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was that guy. What a legend. Okay, so drafted out in the 30th. Is that first round or was it a sub?
30th round. Uh, yeah. Nothing.
Yeah,
There was
first
50.
pick for the
Yeah.
there's yeah, it's for 50, but I know that like there was
Oh, you mean
there was
oh, you mean what? Oh, you mean when I got drafted out of college, 30th
Yeah,
pick?
out of college.
Yeah,
30th
last
pick.
pick stuck in there. Last pick of the first round, not supplemental. I think I'm the last player ever to sign for less than $1 million in the first round.
Really?
I think so. I
Damn.
signed for 950,000, and I don't think that anybody else ever signed. Even the slot was one over a million for me, but I signed for under slot, and I don't think anybody ever since. Just it's been going up. So I don't know. I was thinking about
Hey,
that.
someone's gotta do it, man. Someone's gotta be
Yeah,
the last one. It was you.
I didn't care at
But
all. I was so pumped. I mean, I didn't care at all.
oh, yeah.
But
You're a first rounder. Like, I was the
uh,
last pick in the 4th round, and I was just like, "Thank God I'm not a 5th rounder, like all you losers." Like, that's
yeah,
that's how I approached it. I was Mr. Relevant in the 4th round. Um, so you're drafted, Cardinals, and you're a rare well, not rare, at that time, this was normal, but now, if you were a first-round college draft pick, you spent 3 years in the minors. Over 3 years, right? 3 seasons, 4 seasons? Parts of
yeah,
4?
every level.
Like,
Oh yeah,
way longer than any you would have now. You'd be up in a year, like,
yeah,
maybe the same year you're drafted if you're that pick.
yeah.
So you actually have some minor league, like, memories, and everyone hears all about, like, "Yeah, the minors suck. The bus trips are too long. We all eat PB&J, blah, 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 blah," but there are some good things. What is your favorite takeaway from being in the minor leagues? Like, what was the best part about playing with like, learning how to be a professional, but in the minors?
Well, I mean, the people, I guess, like the friends that I have that are probably the most meaningful to me, like all from the minor leagues. Um, there was like a group of us that were all drafted in and around the same time with the Cardinals. So it was like myself, John Jay, Daniel Descalzo, Alan Craig. David Freese got traded over. He was in the crew. My friend, this guy Jim Rappaport, who played Stanford, was one of my best friends. And like at one point, like I had a place in Jupiter where the spring training was, and at one point I had like 5 guys living with me, just like. And that's the stuff I think about the most. Like the games, I mean, it was an absolute. It took me a really long time to be good. Honestly, like I was really bad for a while, and it was really hard, and I really didn't know if I was going to make it or not. But just the friends, like the friendships, and the stories. Obviously, all the stuff that we did when we were young, and you could still do it, and show up and play ball in all these random towns. I mean, I really loved it. But yeah, I threw way too many freaking pitches in the minor leagues. Like I threw like 600 innings in the minor leagues,
Yeah,
and I think about
I have
that all.
700.
Some of my best fastballs were left behind in a game that ultimately didn't matter. So it's like, damn, But that's how it
Yeah,
goes.
yeah. Dude, those house like, living with all the dudes in the house, like, it turns in feels like a I also lived with a bunch of frat dudes in the off season because my buddy was a president of a frat, so we lived in a live out once with 8 guys, and then during the season, I lived with 4 or 5 guys too, so I'm like, "Eh, man, I kinda want my own place here." Uh, but, like, I remember I lived in, Clearwater in 2010 with, Julian Sampson, which is Adrian Sampson's older brother,
Mm,
Travis d'Arnaud, Justin Afraidis, Jake Diekman, and me in
okay.
a 2-bedroom. So I slept on the couch or in Darno's closet because
Yes.
I was like the 19-year-old kid
Yeah.
in high A. And they took me under the wing. I got to go out with them. Tyler Cloyd was in and out with us too. Another guy. There's another name for you.
Yeah.
And that was the Philly crew. But Travis had just been traded for Halliday to the Blue Jays, but they were in Dunedin. So he's like, I'm just gonna live with you guys.
Just stick.
So I'll never forget that, right? And a lot of those guys I mean, they're all still playing. Jake's still playing, I think. Deke's still looking for someone too, right? He's out there? I
Yes.
think so. Someone's gonna
Yeah.
get a good one in him too. But yeah, you guys got to play together last year.
Yeah.
Had you ever hung out with Deekman before that?
No.
He's
No.
he's
I mean,
hilarious.
I knew I've seen him forever, but yeah. No, he was great. He was great. I was super bummed when he wasn't with us anymore
Yeah,
because we were like holding it down out there a little bit, like the
yeah.
two OGs, and then life got in the way. That's baseball.
That's baseball, man. Dude, I gotta get him on the show because we got some stuff to his story's crazy too. I don't know if you know about when he dropped down and just added 5 miles an hour, just one off season, just on accident. That's
He's a
nuts.
freak. Oh, he's a freak, man. Like
One of the most athletic people I've ever seen. He can
it's
just
a
do a
joke.
backflip.
Oh
He
my
can go
god.
between his legs, dunk anytime he wants.
Yeah, this year we were playing a lot of this. A lot of they had like a mini hoop in the locker room this year with the Mets, and we were playing a lot of like the taps game, like where it's like 3-on-3,
Yeah,
and you can like rebound and dunk it. And he was a cheat code. I mean, absolute cheat code. And he's 30. He's 38 years old, and he's
yeah.
by far the bounciest guy in the clubhouse. I was like, this is insane.
You just watch him walk around, you're like, "That guy is a freak athlete."
Oh yeah.
Just from Omaha, or no, he's from Lincoln. He's from Lincoln, Claude's
Yeah.
from Omaha.
Yeah.
Uh, just a farm boy that is just absolute monster, everywhere, even on a baseball field.
Yeah.
Alright, so we're past the minors, you get called up, I won't stay there too long. 2010, big
Yeah.
leagues,
Yeah.
Cardinals.
Yeah.
You mentioned didn't the whole rookie year didn't go great. I know we've spoken together about this because mine was very similar. But you did throw enough to have that, "Oh, shit, I'm in the big leagues." Who
Yeah.
was the guy where he was in the box, you're like, "Damn, like, this is real. Like, I'm really like, this is me. I'm not."
There's a couple guys, I guess, that stand out pretty quick. Like my debut, I faced Derek Lee and Alfonso Soriano. They were on the Cubs, and
Oh,
like
yeah.
Soriano, I was a big Yankees fan growing up. He batted leadoff for the Yankees forever, so that was surreal. And then I gave up a home run to Jim Edmonds. Maybe like my third and final, no, second, my second career start, my next start. Yeah, I gave up a home run to Jim Edmonds, and he was in Milwaukee at the time, so he was like, super vet. So that was
Yeah.
one. Obviously, there's some spring training ones as well, but those are the first ones where I was like, damn, like these are guys I watched play, so much, and now they're in the box, and it was crazy. Yeah, it doesn't feel real at first, for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't. You're out there numb, and you're like, "Oh, wait, you need me to get him out?" And you know how to do it. It just feels like you're out of your body there for a minute.
Yeah,
You mentioned you started. You have 3 big league starts,
yeah,
5 total appearances,
yeah.
for 20 something innings, and then the next year going into spring training in 11, they moved you to the bullpen, correct? And you were in Memphis
Oh
for the
no,
entire time,
no,
or was that year?
there's so much that happened there. Like, so I was a starter the whole way up. I was maybe similar to you. I don't know. I struck out a lot of guys. I walked a lot of guys.
Yep. No,
I
that's the one.
if it was today, I might have made it because I threw 5 innings a lot. Like if I
Mhm.
threw a lot of like 5 1/3, 1 run, those are like my good games. And sometimes the pitch count would just not allow me to get any further, whatever. Anyway, point is, I got called up in that year in 2010. My shoulder was barking pretty bad, and I ended up going to the IL the rest of that year after I stunk up the joint. And so then I got into a little bit of a medical dispute with the team, but it ended up leading. It's a long story, but it ended up leading me to being back in AAA the next year off the roster. So now I'm off
Oh.
there, and I'm down there and I'm starting. I'm still starting. Now at this point, I'm kind of begging to go to the bullpen a little bit because I'm like, damn, like I have a good breaking ball and I throw 95. So like I'm looking at the current Cardinal bullpen and I'm like, I can strike more guys out than these guys in short bursts, but that just wasn't getting looked at that way still. It was still depth, and it's just the way that they looked at things. So I ended up pitching that whole next year in the minor leagues, 2011, as a starter, and I don't get called up at all. Don't really have much of a better year. There was actually pitched a little better than the numbers show there, but like I think I just lost it. I think I just did horrible in like 3 games that blew me up. But that year the Cardinals won the World Series, so I didn't get called up, and all my buddies won the World Series. So that was a little bit of a punch in the gut. And then that offseason, thinking, okay, I'm going to get Rule 5 drafted by some team that wants to convert me to the bullpen, I get put back on the roster. So
Mhm.
now I come into 2012 spring, and that's the first time that they tried me in the bullpen, was that spring training, 2012. Pitched great that whole spring, almost made the team, ended up not making the team. And then something in a very shocking move, because I felt like I did a good job, I got waived that next day. So now I got waived, and then that's when I got claimed by Colorado, and I've just been relief pitching ever since, basically. But that's how it kind of happened.
Do you remember who you got like, it was probably numbers that's a numbers crunch situation, right? Do you know who you got waived for? Do you remember?
Honestly, no, because I don't even know. I don't even know. I mean, I guess I could go back and look at it. I mean, I know when I first got called up to the big leagues, the reason why I got those 3 starts is because Kyle Loesch got hurt. So that's what
Carlos.
got me my initial opportunity. And then when I came, I got they traded for Jake Westbrook or somebody, and then immediately that was it. Like I wasn't starting anymore, and then I was hurt, and then that was it. But I don't remember what the roster decision was because, like I said, I just got added back to the 40 man. and I threw really, really well in spring to the point where Matheny was the manager at this point, and
Mhm.
he seemed to be high on what I was doing at the time. He was like, "Oh, like we really like you in this new role. We might have something here." So I'm thinking like, "Oh, maybe I have found something here after a bunch of years of kind of spinning my tires a little bit." But it didn't go that way. But obviously, it was a huge blessing. I got to go to Colorado, and everything went a lot. I had a lot more opportunity from that point on. But the relief
Mhm.
pitching thing, I was begging for it for like a year or two just because I wanted to be in the major leagues. And minor leagues, it wasn't that I didn't think I could start, but I saw why I was having difficulty. Like, it's the same things I struggle with 15 years later. It's like,
Yeah.
it's holding runners. And if they put 8 lefties in the lineup, like, it's going to be tough. It's going to be
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's how it goes, I guess.
That is exactly that is exactly how the relief thing goes. Uh, so you mentioned you're like, oh no, I'm good. I got claimed off the Ravens to the Rockies.
Yeah.
So any pitcher that's like, I'm trying to get established, especially because we just talked about a guy recently too who just signed a good deal later in his career, Jeff Hoffman, who did the same thing. He's like, he went Cincinnati, he went Colorado, Cincinnati. Like those are not the two teams you want to establish yourself as a pitcher, especially when
Yeah.
he was going back and forth to starting and relieving too.
Yeah.
Eventually got somewhere where he could focus on the thing, and I think Weaver, same thing. Like it's just sometimes you feel like you're close, but you just can't quite get it figured out. And then a small change like this can change. So when you got picked up by the Rockies,
Yeah.
first thing, were you acutely where you're like, okay, so Colorado's I have to figure this out a little bit. Like Colorado's a different beast. Were you like aware of that,
Yeah.
or were you just I'm so glad to be on another roster that you had a lot. There's a lot of baggage. You're like, I'm good. Clean slate, clean slate. Let's just go.
Yeah.
I'm not going to worry about that until I get there.
Yeah, to be honest, it was a little bit of both. I mean, everybody's reaction was exactly what you would think. Everybody's like, "Ooh, Colorado, damn!" Like,
Mm,
okay, like they didn't want to tell you, but like, yeah, they're worried about you a little bit going there,
yeah.
right? But at the same time, like the Cardinals were such a pitching machine. They had so many good guys. I mean, the guys that were about to break in with the Cardinals, right when I was trying to hang on there, was Joe Kelly and Shelby Miller and Trevor Rosenthal and Carlos Martinez,
Oh,
and Michael Waka, and it just goes on and on. And Lance Lynn was there, and like there's just really good pitchers. Like those guys were awesome. What can you say? And
yeah.
then so when I went to Colorado and I looked around and I was like, there's some guys here, but it's not the same. It's not the same. Like I could see that I could fit in with this group. Like I could find a way to carve myself out a role here. And I didn't think too much about the difficulty of it yet. I was just so happy to get the opportunity, right? And that was right around the time where I fixed my mental game. Like I started focusing on the right shit, and I started, being more process oriented, and I started, understanding what mattered. And then I got, just in a good, it ended up just being such a blessing. Like I went over there, and right away I got put with two pitching coaches that only talked to me about mental stuff and approach and strategy instead of mechanics. And it was like a clean slate. They didn't know me for 600 innings. They were just like, let's see what you got, kid. And so I was able to just, show them that I had something. And I survived the first year through a piggyback system and a whole bunch of crazy stuff and a really bad team. But once I survived that first year and I could sense that the team trusted me a little bit,
Mhm.
that's when I was able to incrementally get better, because now I had a chance to like figure it out, and it's so hard at the beginning. This. It's just so
Oh,
hard at
yeah.
the beginning. You're trying to show what you got, and but you also you have no time to evaluate yet. Like you don't have any sample size yet.
Yeah.
So it's just hard. It's just tricky to like improve at a really fast rate that first year. I think first year you're kind of like, let's see how this works. You
Let's
know.
see how this works. And you're very much like me. I think we're similar. Like things pique our interest, or something we think might work. We're down to try anything, which could also do the opposite effect, where we're just like trying so many things that we're not giving anything enough time to marinate and figure out if it's actually working or not. Like before, so I would always be doing that, and I had the same issue as you. The walks. I'm like, man, I strike out 11 and 5 1/3 sometimes, but then I like next time I'll strike out 4 and walk 6 and give up 5 runs. Like, what the hell? What's wrong with me? Why can't I just be the guy who like throws the sinkers and gets the ground ball? Why can't I be Cal Gibson? Cal Gibson does this is great. Why can't I be okay with the pitch to contact? And it just wasn't me. It just wasn't the
Yeah.
way it was. Um, we've talked a lot about the process oriented stuff, and I want to revisit that, in a moment. But you got over there, and you, like you said, I think I saw it was like a 4.6 in that first year, but like you pitched the whole year, you had a good number of innings, like less hits than innings, like a lot of really positive, like these are
Yeah.
the types of things I know I can do. My 2015 was very similar, and I got moved to the pen. I had 15 starts
Yeah.
and like a 4, but I was just like, but it was a really good, like I got better and better and better as the year went on. But then
Yeah.
2013 rolls around
Yeah.
and you're nasty. And you're nasty from that point until the big year, 2018. So I want to hear about the development, your pitching development over the time. And we know about your breaking ball. You said you had a good one even going into this, but the Ottavino sweeper before the sweeper started to
Yeah.
happen in this time. So in those years, what were the biggest things you think that really like unlocked you?
Yeah, so as a progression, 2012, that first year with the Rockies, like I ended up with like a 4.5, 4.6, whatever it was. But I pitched really well that year. I ended up giving up. I had one outing in September where I gave up 7 runs, and right after the next game I gave up 3 more. So I gave up 10 runs in like an inning and a third, and that's what blew me up really bad. But uh, I knew I threw the ball well. Like I knew that overall that year had I was starting to trust it. Like I was starting to trust it a little bit. Like okay, like my approach is working, and my approach at that time was throw a lot of sliders and sneak them with fastballs, and mostly pitch in with the fastball, but just throw a lot of sliders because they're expecting fastballs. Like I throw like most guys are throwing fastballs still. I was throwing 95, so the report says 95. So get ready for 95, and I'm just like not giving you anything. And if I am, it's going to be on your hands, right? So that worked for a little while, and then it really worked all the way through 2013 where I was again like in a multi-inning role, and it was the same strategy but just now I was better about not getting ambushed and stuff. Like some of the mistakes I had made the previous year was like first pitch fastball home runs and a couple things, and like we had Jason Giambi on the team, and so like I really was like listening to veterans tell me like, hey kid, like use your slider, blah blah blah. So it was just at that point it was like more just really buying into how backwards can I pitch.
Okay.
That was that part. And then going into 2014, that's when I started pitching more high leverage. And now I just felt like already, like the guys in the division have seen me a lot already. And so now if they know I'm going to throw sliders, I have to throw different sliders. So that was the next progression. Like
Okay.
now I'm going to throw one going down. Now I'm going to throw one going left. Now I'm going to throw one going in between. I'm going to throw a hard one. I'm going to throw a slow one, whatever. So I did that for a while. And that's when I started noticing that the side to side one was really fucking them up. And so then that became the primary slider. I still threw the others, but that's when the sweeper type thing, I started leaning on that because I was like, this shit works. I don't
Yeah.
know why it's working, but it's working. And from there, I started developing the two seam to throw the backdoor pitch.
Okay.
That eventually became like who I am as a pitcher is like the combination of the sinker and the sweeper. And I have other pitches to complement that. But at that time, it was mostly four seam and just three different breaking balls trying to throw as many breaking balls as I could and then use my velocity. I still didn't understand how to control contact. I didn't understand how to read swings yet. All I knew was like, oh, I think you're looking for a fastball. I think you're looking for a slider. And I know my slider's hard to hit. So that was that progression. But during that time, the reason why I think I succeeded is just because that's the time in my career where I had the least amount of walks. And it was just because I was so locked in. Like
How's that?
mentally, the stuff I had been working on at that time just allowed me to throw a lot of strikes. And all of a sudden, that was kind of the thing I had never done before. And so, with less base runners, things were going my way for a little while. Um, and that was the progression. Like it's with pitching, it's just there's so many layers to it.
Yeah.
Trying to get better at each layer, and those were the first layers that I attacked. Was just like throw more freaking strikes and throw as many breaking balls as you can because they seem to not want to hit it. You know?
Yeah, you were ahead of your time, and like you really were. Like, be able to do it that young in your career and just be like, I'm throwing breaking balls like crazy. Because it took me forever just to be like, dude, stop throwing 70% fastballs. But I was in places where the fastball played more. Probably would have done it a little bit faster in Colorado, which is interesting because I played in Colorado in 2023, where the first time I had a sweeper, and the thing disappeared. And it disappears for most people. And
Yeah.
but you're in a place where it's very hard to throw breaking balls, throwing a bunch of different breaking balls. Like, how did you find that? Like, did
I
someone
think
show you a grip? Try this one, or was it just literally just experiment, experiment, experiment?
well, the two veterans were Rafael Betancourt and Matt Belisle, and they talked a lot
Matty
about
B.
yeah, and
I
they
forgot you
talked
played with Matty.
about changing your sights, like Coors Field versus sea level. Like at Coors
Okay.
Field, you have to anticipate the less break, so you have to set up your pitches a little differently. And like if you want them to chase something below the zone, you got to throw a fastball down there and get them to swing because there's not as much difference like
Yeah.
in the break. So you
Yeah.
really have to so-called tunneling. Like they didn't
Yeah.
use that word, but they were like you have to really master throwing down here and then you can get them to chase off that. And then also, I just think, and when people ask me about the success in cores, I think a lot of it is just that I throw weird, and it's just like deception works anywhere. Like I'm throwing cross body, and I think people were just uncomfortable with it for a while. And then the sweeper, it's like you think it's going to come down into your barrel, but you're just kind of under it.
Yeah.
I think that was what ended up happening to me. I mean, I go back and look at the movement data from when like 2018. There is movement data. I can go look at it. Yeah, my pitches were a lot shorter. Like the sweeper was like 12, but I feel
Like,
like 12 at 83 in
that's
Colorado
big, bro.
played though. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
but,
that still kind of plays. Like, that's a
yeah,
lot. That's a lot for Colorado because I remember mine was, like, 16, and that day it was, like, 7. But again, it can be your arm action, you were just getting a little bit more air under it somehow, or, like, the spin was just slightly different. It's like some sweepers work better, and you pitch there all the time, so you're
yeah,
like, "I can figure this out." I had to just walk in and be like, "Well,
yeah.
I don't know. I guess I'm gonna throw the other one," which thank God I had 2 at that point. I didn't learn any of this until I left you even throwing breaking balls, all the breaking balls in the world.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, guys would really try to like not acknowledge the cores effect. Like so many guys would just try to ignore it,
yeah,
but that's just not my nature. Like I wanted to understand it and I wanted to figure it
use
out.
it. You
And
used it,
so
sounds
I
like.
just got really good at constantly adjusting my sights like home and road and taking that like really seriously. And I just feel like I'm probably the guy who took it the most seriously. And therefore I was able to kind of like combat it a little better than some of the other guys who were just in denial about it. And I just don't understand that mindset, but I've always felt comfortable on that mound,
Yeah,
for whatever reason. And it was awesome. I really love playing for them.
yeah. I mean, it seems like you did. You made your chops, and then you eventually got to go back home. So you grew up a Yankees fan, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, everyone is. Mets fans know that by now. And you got to go back and go play for the Yankees, get your big
Yeah.
3-year deal, which is all any reliever can really hope for if they're not Edwin Diaz.
Yeah.
Uh, what
Yeah.
was that like? Tell me what it was like to actually like have the Yankees be like, "Hey, we want to give you this
Well,
thing," and you're like, "I'm doing it." What was that like?
it was crazy, man. I mean, it was so surreal. Something I always dreamed about. Like, how am I going to get to the Yankees? I mean, while I was in Colorado, I never really wanted to leave, but I kind of knew that I was going to have to leave because the previous offseason, before I became a free agent, they signed Wade Davis, Brian Shaw, and Jake McGee to all the big
Yeah,
money. So I knew they
yeah,
weren't going to sign a fourth guy to big money. Like, if I had a great year, ended up having the best year of my life. So I knew I wasn't staying in Colorado. And, Yankees were one of the first teams that reached out. And then it was just so intoxicating because that's the team I wanted to play on like my whole life. And I felt like I probably wouldn't have been ready for it when I was younger. It would have been overwhelming to me. It would have been hard for me mentally. But I felt like at that point, my confidence was just like on a crazy level. And the team was really good. And there was a lot of other good relievers. And I was just like, I don't have to be the guy. I can go in and do my thing. And like, this is going to be great. And that's exactly how it was. Like, it was touch and go, like the negotiation and like ending up there. And like I said, it was intoxicating and it was tough because there was other good offers I had from other places. But like at a certain point, like I just wanted that only. And so I was like so desperate for it to happen, which is like not a good way to be in free agency. And I've never been like that since, but that first year I was like that. And
yeah.
so it worked
I
out
mean,
and it was
yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're super excited and you end up taking, a little less to go to the team you really want to be on, like, at that point, that's kind of the point of being alive. So, no one could blame you there. Eh, you mentioned you mentioned that you were really confident and feeling really good. That an example of that would be when you said you would strike out Babe Ruth every time you faced him, um,
Yeah, yeah.
in that offseason. And I remember being like, "Oh, they're not gonna like that very much." So, going in, growing up there, were you just, like, trying to poke some fun, or did you know, like, "Oh, the
Well,
the Yankees media is gonna love this"?
no, I mean, it actually happened before I signed, so for a
Oh,
little
yeah.
while there, people were like, "Oh my god, definitely don't sign this idiot,"
Yeah. I
he
remember that.
just he just stomped on Babe Ruth's grave or whatever. I've addressed it many times. I should have just said Jimmy Fox, nobody would have cared. I
Yeah,
mean,
you're right.
at the end of the day,
Can't
I
say
did
Babe Ruth,
a
can't
bad
say
choice.
Mickey Mantle, can't say Joe DiMaggio, can't
Yeah,
say
it's a bad choice.
everybody.
It's a bad choice. It's like right now trying to say, "Oh, Barry Bonds" or something. Like obviously there's certain guys that are like just bigger and different. You can't do.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I didn't know how it would play. It's annoying because like I have two. Like when I signed with the Yankees, I was on the back of both of the newspapers, right? The Daily News
Uh-huh.
and the Post, and I have both of them framed, and they both refer to that.
Of course they
Like
do.
it's like one of the headlines is like ruthless, like Babe Basher Ottavino joins Yankees or whatever, and the other one is similar, like it's another one like Babe Bully or some shit, and it's cool and it's funny, but I in part of me wishes that that wasn't like such a part of my story of signing there, right? Because it was just like a stupid thing, like in the middle of it, in the middle of a podcast, and I thought I was making a really good point, but
Yeah.
I just took it in a direction that I guess I didn't realize was going to become so viral. But then it didn't happen, so I learned the lesson a little bit.
Well, in your defense, you were right. The dude swung like a 4-pound bat also, so it's like, just
Yeah.
he had nothing going for him, and, I got asked that once too later. It's become a popular question now since then,
Oh yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
you just do I think that Babe Ruth could, like, if he were sent here, it would take him a while, but he might be able to, like, figure out how to play the game this way. I don't know how physically gifted he is, it's hard to
Yeah.
tell, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, like, I try to give them credit for, like, being athletes and, like, being competitors and making adjustments. And that's what baseball is. So if they were good at it then, they were making adjustments. It's just it would be crazy ass adjustments they'd have to make now. But yeah,
Yeah.
would Babe Ruth at that time? No, he'd be like, I don't even know how to swing at this. I don't even know where's the strike zone. What's happening right now? I have another weird thing I saw. Why are you a switch hitter?
I just grew up as one. It happened very young. I started off hitting righty, whatever, and then I remember like I in coach's pitch or something, I tried lefty and got a couple hits, and then I was just like, oh, like Bernie
Like, I'm gonna
Williams,
do this in the big leagues.
yeah, Bernie Williams is my favorite player, so
There you go.
I just love switch hitters. My switch hitting major league stories are weird. Like I have two hits, one's righty, one lefty, which is great. But I'm like 2 for 29, so it's nothing impressive. The one that's cool is I was facing Chris Capuano one time, and I was hitting right-handed, and it was like the end of his outing, towards the end of his outing, and he kind of like lost it during my at bat. Like he threw the first two pitches, like one to the backstop and one in the grass. And so Mattingly was manager and came out and got him like right there, 2-0 count. And he brought in Jamie Wright, who's a righty. So then I switched around left-handed for the rest of the at bat. And I remember when I got in the box, AJ Ellis was catching, and he was like, "What the fuck is going on?" He said to me.
What are you doing?
And I was like, yeah, I switch hit, and he was like, oh boy. And then Jamie Wright threw me like a disgusting sinker, and I like grounded out on the next pitch. But whatever, it was still cool though.
Yeah, I can yeah, yeah, position players are like, dude, just no one cares about this show. Just can we move on? Let's just get this at bat over with. I'm like, hey man, I want to play. Nah, actually, when I was hitting, I was just being annoying. I don't know if I ever told you about the lackey at bat, but I fouled off like 6 straight pitches to start the game inning or start the AB, and none of them were close to being fair. And he was getting so angry because
Yeah,
I wouldn't stop swinging.
yeah,
Just full underbite, just so mad.
yeah,
It's one of my favorite things ever. Okay, so you're with the Yankees. You had the big playoff appearance, going into the extra innings, get the big strikeout to get out of it. There, I believe that was an 18 first year, correct?
yeah,
Um, but
yeah,
then
yeah.
after 2020, You go to the Red Sox. So tell
Yep.
me about that transition mentally and how did everyone around you take that? Honestly, the fans in Boston, the fans in Yankees, like what how was that? Because I can't even imagine, especially
Yeah,
being from New York.
yeah. It's just crazy, man. 2019 was a great year for me. It ended poorly in the playoffs, but it was a great year. And then 2020 was really bad. Like I felt good going into that year, but then we got shut down.
Mm,
We go through summer camp. I'm kind of out of whack a little bit when we get to the season. I actually threw the ball pretty well, but I had another like one game that just buried me. Gave up like 7 runs in one game against the Blue Jays. So that ended my season. Like I pitched horrible. Like obviously my numbers were horrible. So that offseason, the Yankees decided they wanted to get under the luxury tax. So I kind of knew like from the rumors and everything that I was probably going to be the guy that they were going to trade because they didn't want to pay my salary. So it was just tough because I really like wanted another year there, and I really wanted to like finish what we had started. Like I felt like the group was really strong, and I love being a Yankee. And I was actually working out at Yankee Stadium, and I got a call, and it was from not even my current agent. It was from like one of my older agents, and he was like, yeah, a great dude. And he was like, "Hey, man, like, I think you're about to get traded." And I was like, "Oh, how do you know that?" And he's like, "Well, I was just talking to the Giants, and they said that they were trying to acquire you, but they just lost out. Like, they didn't win the trade. Somebody else got you." So I was like, "Oh, interesting. Thanks so much. Amazing for you to call me. I appreciate that." And I hang up. So I go back to the weight room, Yankee Stadium, and it's just me and Aaron Boone in there. And I'm like, "I'm about to get traded." And he goes, "Yeah." Like he didn't know. He really had no idea. So it was super weird. So then I was like working out, and then my phone rings and it's Cashman. So I'm like, okay. So I walk out of there. I talk to Cashman. He tells me that I'm getting traded. Definitely didn't see the Red Sox coming. In my mind, like they're going to
that's
send
ama
me.
you don't do that. No one the Yankees don't do
Yeah,
that.
they're going to send me to Pittsburgh or something. And like, I'm not saying I'm the best pitcher in the world, but going into that year, I mean, the Yankees were extremely right-handed. Like, I was gonna be a little bit of a problem to face in a couple games that year for them. So I thought it was weird when they traded me to Boston. And it took me a little while to get like over it. Like for a little bit, I was just like, "This is so crazy," but it was such a blessing. Like at the same time, Red Sox is like another team that I always dreamed of playing on.
Oh,
Um, yeah, I mean, I went to school in Boston for college at
wow.
Northeastern, and a lot of my good college friends were diehard Red Sox fans. I was in Boston when they broke the curse. Like I know what Red Sox Nation's about, and like always loved going to Fenway. So I was super pumped. My wife was pumped. She went to school up there, so it was amazing, and it ended up being great. Like the year, like once I got my head wrapped around it, it was fine. Like I went there, had a good year, went all the way to ALCS. I mean, it was really great. It was cool, but definitely a shocker that it was Yankees to Red Sox. Like I just didn't see it coming.
Yeah, I actually didn't know I didn't know, I mean, it doesn't surprise me one bit that the Red Sox were also, like, one of those bigger than life kind of teams, like the Yankees also are, uh, with all the history. And you're like, it was. I'm the same way. I loved going to Fenway, even though the locker room is what it is, and the stairs are what they are, and the food is what it is, and
Yeah,
all the stuff that comes along with it. There's just something about being in Fenway, and I've always loved going as well. And I had a soft spot, and I felt the same way. Like if there were another team, it's funny because the A's were also that because my dad loved the A's in high school because he watched their back-to-back World Series. Um, so like I got to play for one of them, at least. That was good. But yeah,
yeah,
that I think a lot of kids, I think that like, you know, for all the Garrett Coles in the world that grew up in California and dream playing for the Yankees, there's a lot that like from around the country that also dream about playing for the Red Sox. So that
for sure.
I thought it was going to be more of like oh no, I hate these guys, and it was tough. And but it's I'm glad it wasn't that. All right. So we are getting pretty close here to our time, but we have to talk about pitching and
Sure.
analytics a little bit.
Sure.
Um, you talked a lot about becoming process oriented, all the mental side of the game, and like kind of just playing around with the breaking balls and be like, I got to throw these breaking balls in zone and throw more strikes. When did the analytics stuff start to become a huge part of that process for you?
Yeah, I would say probably 20. I mean, really, it's always been there, but it's just like different stuff I was looking at. When I first came
Yeah.
up, I was looking at scouting reports. I was watching a lot of video, and this isn't this isn't like analytics the way we think of it now, but I was really paying attention to like first pitch swingers and like little data stuff like that. Where do guys chase? You know, where can I
Yeah.
get them to swing a ball? You know, all
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And that was really kind of what we looked at, right, back in the day. We weren't talking about exit velo. We weren't talking about stuff plus or any of that. It was just like you're reacting on how your stuff is working and trying to stay ahead a little bit. You know, go to your strengths, but also look at the hitters. But I think when I got to like 2014, that's when like Fangraphs was coming around, and I started really paying attention to a lot of the process stats, first pitch strikes, race to two strikes, things like that, because that's stuff that gets honestly overlooked nowadays. But that type of stuff, like if you don't have your process dialed in, like your baseball fundamentals dialed in, you're not giving yourself the best chance. So that's the first way I attacked it, was just like, what are my baseball fundamentals?
Yeah.
Figuring out what my best pitches are, what my best combinations are, utilizing the top of the strike zone. I learned that by watching LaTroy Hawkins pitch a little bit with us and be like, why does that fastball work up there? And then watching Sean Doolittle and some other guys, and then digging into the numbers and being like, oh, the numbers suggest there's an insane amount of chase rate up here.
Mhm.
Let me try it. Even with my poopy four seamer, I was blowing doors for a while because everybody was swinging at it. So it was like, all right, that was like step one. And then eventually you start understanding movement and how to create it and spin axis and everything. I mean, I've just always been a sponge for any baseball information. But yeah, it just got more and more accelerated. And I think it was probably 2017, which where it was a year where I struggled, where I started to dive in a little bit even harder on like the pitch design side of
Yeah.
things. And that's kind of, I was in that space, I would say, for the next couple years heavily. Like that was kind of my focus through 18, 19, 20, even into 21. And then from that point, it was like, okay, I kind of know how to throw everything now. And I know what my potential is, but it's like now I have to figure out what to throw, when to throw it, why. I have to reevaluate my why for everything. So there's a
Mhm.
lot of analytics that goes in with that, obviously, as well. And we have so many tools at our disposal. True Media and Baseball Savant, and all the data's on the dugout iPads and
Mhm.
stuff that the teams give you and all that. And you have to kind of make as many educated decisions as you can. But it's gotten really hard. Just the game's at a really high level right now. I
Yeah.
think it's been that way for a while, but I really felt it last couple of years. It's at a really high level, so every single thing you're doing matters.
Mhm.
When you don't have outlier pitches, and it's just hard to have outlier pitches at this point. So
Yeah.
analytics. I mean, I've been using everything, but yeah, that was kind of the acceleration point of it for
Mhm.
sure. I bought my Edgertronic camera and my Rapsodo and all that stuff like 2017. So that was when I started getting some weird looks, in spring training the next year by people like,
Yeah.
well, what's going on?
What did you Yeah, because you can actually physically see what's happening, like the
Yeah,
physics of the thing. It's funny the way you mentioned it, and if I can leave anything with the kids or any younger guy that's like listening to this trying to get an idea of how the whole process works. Like everything you mentioned, especially from the early time, and just correct me if I'm wrong at any point here, but this is kind of how I'm thinking about it. Is like the first pitch strikes and all this kind of stuff is like you mentioned a lot about being acutely aware of the season killer outings, like those big blow up outings are what kill your season as relievers. So if you can avoid these free give me like solo shots to like these extra little runs here and there that aren't really meaningful in the long term, but they go on your statistics. Like if you can avoid that stuff, or the big inning, like you can end with a stronger year. And if you're kind of up and down and you have those big blow ups, so you like look for things like, can I get away with first pitch up strikes? Can I just groove one in there? Or do I got to be nasty right away? Like knowing that stuff is really important. And then as you move on, you have a better idea of like how your stuff plays on each other, how it moves. Like when you aim for a certain place, it's going to go to a different place. And who swings at that type of pitch. That's when the numbers started to like the trends started to be represented through numbers. You could find them. But now, and I think what I'm hearing when you say like the game's playing at a high level, those trends are moving fast and to point as you get older and your age, like you can't adjust fast enough. Like you can't just learn a pitch in the middle of the season like you were able to do when you were 25. Like it's harder. Like you got to figure out how to do that
well,
when you're older.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's quick. Like the season can start with sinkers being the meta, and then in June they would have closed that gap, and now no one throws sinkers anymore again. It's
Yeah.
happening like in the same season these days, and that's
Yeah,
hard.
I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure if there's going to be as many like. I mean, there'll still be some trends that are like, man, everybody's hammering splitter this year or
Yeah,
whatever for a while. Like, I
yeah,
do
we're running
think,
out of those though. Yeah,
I do think, like, yeah, I just think like the hitters have gotten really smart. They know how to adjust their bat path for different stuff. You know, they're better at not like chasing everything all at once now. They're just like they'll sit back and wait for what they can handle. That's hard to pitch to. You know, you can't. It's hard to read a guy who's just laying in the weeds, right? You know,
yeah,
it's like I'm
yeah,
waiting for one pitch and I'm not letting you know that that's what I'm looking for. But you know, the game's played at a high level and the stuff is so outrageous that stuff alone, like obviously you want to have as much of it as you can, but for the majority of the guys, like you have to layer in everything else, like your approach and your choices and all your mix and your why. You have to have a lot of good answers to the why you're doing what you're doing. And yes, it happens very fast and it's a very big challenge, but I obviously enjoy all that stuff, but it has gotten harder. I know that it's hard for people who, you know, maybe aren't in it every day to like maybe feel it, but man, the hitters are really, really good right now. And I think sometimes they get a little shortchanged,
yeah.
but they're really good right now.
I think the hitters are getting to the best version of themselves really quickly, and pitchers are too. And what happens is our game just has a natural advantage for pitchers. And so when both guys are at their peak, the pitcher's going to still win most of the time, and that's what we're seeing. I really, I just think it's like pitchers are not. You're not just having guys who are just out there being idiots and not learning for long anymore. Like they're learning fast, or they
Yeah.
already know coming in. They're Paul Skeens. They're already absolute monsters when they show up at 21 because they had all that stuff in college now. And kids are 16 learning the stuff we learned when we were 25 now. So like it's just
Yeah.
happening faster. But that's why everyone's blowing out too because they're getting to their max velo faster. Like, but
Yeah.
that's just gonna happen. It's just the nature of it.
It
It's
is.
baseball's crazy. It's crazy talking about it right now too, with all
Yeah.
this stuff and not being in it. I'm sad that we never got to sit and just like say the word team shift awake like 500 times during a game, but maybe some point in the future if we can do a breakdown for people. Um,
Yeah.
that was a blast learning about that. Uh, all right, you're free agent 39. I remember asking you the specific question, spring training in 2022. I said, "How long do you want to play?" And you said, "I want to play till I'm 40, man, 40 plus, like however long they'll let me play." And I
Mhm.
looked at you like you were crazy. Like,
Yeah.
nah, dude, I'm gonna get to 35 maybe, and I didn't even do that.
Yeah.
So 39 years old, you're continuing to play. What's the biggest motivation right now? Because you made some money, you got your family. Like what keeps you going?
I still think I can be better than I was last year. You know what I mean? Like it's I love playing it. I love being a part of it. I just appreciate it so much now in a different kind of way. Like even last year, like kind of a tough year for me. Like I ended up not on the playoff roster for the NLCS, but I was soaking it all up. You know, it's just I'm also just like I've been healthy for like 7 straight years, so I feel like I kind of figured that part of it out. So I'm not banging my head against the wall like a lot of people are at this stage of their career, like dealing with a million things. Like I feel good. I just I don't I don't feel done yet. You know,
It's
there
fun.
was a there was a point last year where I was where I was sitting there and I was like, damn, like this might be it, and I had to like have all those thoughts about identity and all that shit you think about, you know, when you're going to be done playing a sport that's been your life. But at least I was able to kind of have those thoughts like maybe a little bit ahead of when I actually had to face it. And
Mm,
it's like I'm going to play this year, but I think, but I'm just not done yet. We'll see. We'll find out. You know,
I love that.
I I haven't had a hard time training. You know, I felt like if it was a chore to like train every day and like do all the stuff right, then that would probably be a pretty good indication. But that just hasn't happened. So that's just what it is. You know.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, if you're still enjoying it, that can
Yeah.
be enough. Like it doesn't need to be more than that. It's just I
Yeah.
like it. I like doing it. It's fun. We got our system down. The kids get it. Everyone gets it. We're all on the same page here. So let's keep going.
Also, still have to
But
want to, you know. Like, it'd be nice to win. I mean, it'd be nice to
Yeah.
win the whole damn thing one time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotten close to the World Series a couple times, but I would love to. you know,
That's win the big one. That's also that was parroted by Rich Hill. Like he's gonna he's like, I'm just gonna keep rolling. What do you say? He's like, I'm gonna keep rolling out of the casket until they until I win one or they just stop opening it up.
yeah,
That's the way it is. But like that's kind of when we were kids. That's why we played.
yeah, for
But
sure.
I will say, uh, there is a I am happy on my end that I knew the whole year. Like I'm just
Yeah,
like it's just I am not gonna go to another spring training. I can't. Knowing it really did. I wasn't expecting it to be like so freeing. Um, I think David Ortiz said this once because he went off that last year,
yeah,
and
you
someone's
did.
like, "Why do you keep playing?" He's like, "I think I'm playing this well because I know I'm done. Like I'm just
Yeah,
emptying the tank right now. There's no pressure to do anything else. Something that I didn't even realize was there, and I'm literally just like, how hard can I hit this goddamn ball?" And I was the same. I'm like, 2-0 sweeper. Who cares? I'm retiring. Like that's what I was doing. And me and Shea Langoliers had a blast. I had just a young guy. He's like, "This is awesome. I can say anything. He'll do it." I'm like, "Exactly." He'd come out. He'd be like, "What do you want to throw?" I'm like, "I don't know, man. What do I want to throw?" He'd be like, and I make him do it. And it was just how we worked. And it was awesome. And I
yeah.
had a blast. I had a blast being the old guy on the team. But yeah, it was
It's cool being the old guy. You get the old guy locker.
really is.
You know, like you get the like the respect a little bit. So like I don't know, I like it. It feels good.
They
You know.
called me. I had a couple guys call me Unk.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm 33, dudes, but our team, we were like 22, the whole team. I was on the mic. We had 14 rookies at one point, and I was like, keep them coming. We got to listen to songs this whole thing because there's too many of you motherfuckers. Anyway, I'm glad that I knew going in. I think that was the right way, but that's not for everybody. Sometimes it's just like it just happens and you're good. But you know what? Like you said before we did the show, there's so many good relievers out there, and there's so many teams that need relievers that there's going to be a lot of guys going places. There's going to be spot. There's going to be spot. A lot of people are going to call. I would not be surprised at all. But yeah, that's it, man. That's the show. Dude, I appreciate you taking the time. We
Of
went a
course.
little bit over, but I don't think we've ever gone under yet so far. So
That's all
it
good.
is
I
what it is.
appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
All right. That is Item Ottavino, and I'm Trevor May. I'm going to take off. I will see you next time on the Cut and Diamond podcast. Don't forget, do the rating thing, 5 stars, please. You can leave comments on Spotify now. I don't know why, but I do appreciate you doing it and letting us know how you like the show and any guests you want to see in the future. And as always, drink your water, watch the baseball, and I'll see you next time on the show. Peace.